Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one is going to be for episode 238. So we get this sort of murder mystery on a ship episode for this week. Definitely a change of pace from what happened before, and the tease for the next episode makes it clear that we're, I guess, in this slower section of the arc as we build again to what I guess will be more of the actual final confrontation with the Fanato. But what this episode mainly dealt with was a lot of suspicion about Kyoho as being the one who killed the captain of the ship. From the preview, I don't think we knew it was the captain who was killed. So it was a little bit of a shock to me that that's the character that they actually went for. Like this just kind of fun-loving captain who helped them with the mission, and he's the one who gets taken out. That was kind of surprisingly, dark and shocking for me. And I obviously suspicion immediately went on Kyoho because of the last episode and the rampage he went on, and the way he's acting at the start of this episode. This ends up being obviously this situation where he's not actually the one who did it. You're waiting for the reveal on who actually did. And the whole time they're sort of teasing, why would he do that? Why is he like this? You have this general backstory tease with the character. And they get there in the end with a few teases. I especially like that they brought up the idea of, oh, everyone is suspicious of him because they think under the mask, and the reason he wears the mask might be because he has a Fanato kind of mark on his head and he's using the mask to cover it. Because otherwise, we don't actually know why he wears the mask. And they even ask, his teammates, and they're like, they don't know either why he wears it. So there's this big tease with that. It eventually amounts to a rather simple backstory of just when he was younger, the Fanato attacked sort of his hometown, burned it down, and he has, I suppose, burns on his face because of that. They don't show it, and in fact, they in two separate occasions sort of get across the idea that it's too emotional and traumatic to show it, but then they jokingly play hey Kawaki, do you want to see what's under here? And Kawaki's like, no. So that was kind of interesting. So his backstory was fine. Obviously he's not a super main character, but it's important, I think, to get to know these three kind of rehabilitating swordsmen a little bit more. So they did an okay job, because this, I think, was probably one of the first episodes where they just kind of, especially with Kyoho and Hebichigo, they just played them normally. And they took away the sort of, one-note characterization of them from before, which is that Kyoho is just this silent big guy who's very aggressive. And Hebichigo is just this sort of almost cruel, calculating character who, because her, weapon is meant to sort of capture and almost torture people, that's what she's like. So I did like that at least there was just scenes where the characters just got to be themselves, and by the end the whole group is actually on better terms with these characters. I think this is something we've already basically done with Buntan over the previous episodes, but they did it with Kyoho here, and they also did it with Hebichigo, mainly through a scene with Metal Lee talking to her, because they get across, I think, relatively well that she actually really cares for Kyoho. Now, I'm not sure if that was just as sort of friendship, or if they were in any way trying to suggest something romantic there. I don't think that particularly matters, but that's the sort of connection they were kind of going for here. And it's one of those things where, especially with her, she just seems to be trying to keep up this wall, this mask, that she doesn't have this more emotional side to herself. So Metal just being exceptionally nice here, and sort of getting this more normal reaction out of her, that she does care. She's a bit upset by how much suspicion is on Kyoho. She's trying to defend him, and Metal's like, okay, you seem to care, you seem to really honestly believe this, I'll try too. And again, she's kind of I can't believe you're so trusting. in a way, like, I can't believe you got me to sort of open up a little bit. So that I like that. I hope we do get more of that when I suppose maybe we go into her backstory. But I think with the three of them, the main thing I suppose we're building up to is just we still want to wait and see why they made that decision that we were told about, that they didn't go with their leader. What's his name? Is it Shizuma or Shizuoka or something like that? From the previous arc, the head guy. They say he escaped along with some of the other swordsmen, but these three chose to stay behind. I'm interested to see more of the dynamic about that. Because, like, Kagura has felt like he's been a little bit sidelined in a lot of the cases in these episodes, so we definitely have to come back and hit on that in a much heavier way, which I assume they will as we get into the ending of the arc style stuff, which could be quite a while because it does look like this arc is going to continue for a pretty long time. So that stuff out of the way, how we actually end up resolving this is that it seems like the episode takes an extremely dark turn, where after they confront Kyo about, like, oh, you won't remove your mask, he sort of runs off and they end up sort of cornering him. He doesn't have his blade with the mallet, so he can't overly defend himself. And they seem to present this situation where Iwabe and Kawaki sort of confront him, and he's so just, I suppose, big, strong, and aggressive that they're forced into this situation where they have to kill him. And the way they present Kawaki in this moment is that, you know, he's doing what needs to be done, and Iwabe is sort of shocked by it. And they play it up for the next couple of minutes in the episode, like, you know, that it's this dark turn for the episode, that they had to kill Kyo, and there was nothing else that could be done. But they don't, there's ultimately this, like, you know, suspicion that, like, what if it wasn't him? We were just forced to kill him for, like, no real reason almost. And it's like, whoa, this episode went from 0 to like 100 in like a second. But it ends up being this very clever kind of ploy by Kawaki, where they reveal he didn't kill Kyo, and actually, like, explain to him on the ground there that, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to act like we killed you here, so you have to play dead for the next while. This will lead the actual perpetrator to come out and kind of do something here. Kawaki later explains to everyone the logic, I suppose, behind why he actually suspected someone, because this plan in any way working, it does hinge on the idea that they suspect that there's basically someone, like, hidden on board who is the killer, who's from the Fanato clan. And there's a nice enough thing of, like, oh, well, the murder was here, and, you know, they got information on, like, suspecting Kyo very, very early. Also, the path from, like, here to the captain's quarters wouldn't work for Kyo, but it would work for these other people. So it's this cool moment where they reveal the killer, and at the point when they do it, you don't know that Kyo isn't dead. So he goes over to Kyo's body, and it's revealed that he's this guy who can sort of take over people's body. He has sort of Suigetsu's kind of style body, where he can turn his whole body into water. So he's planning to take over Kyo's body and sort of use it to cause more damage on the ship. But then Kyo grabs him, and it's this, like, oh, the reveal of the plot. So they actually did that plot reveal, I think, pretty well. And I was surprised by it, and it was clever on Kawaki's part, for sure. And even, like, Sarada was crazy impressed, to the point where it's like, whoa, like, is Kawaki this master investigator character? Because it seemed like no one else had really anything going on, but, like, Kawaki was just on it for this whole thing. So that was pretty good. Similarly, like, Kagura placed Hebichigo by the engine, knowing that, like, if they chased this guy out, he'd probably go for the engine. But because of, I suppose, of his unique, you know, body, he's able to sort of, the idea is that he takes damage, and it probably was going to kill him anyway from her kind of needles and threads. But he basically goes into the engine, blows it up, and so they present the idea the ship is dead in the water, and they're going to have to use, I guess, the sort of lifeboats to head out for help. So it seemingly brings the plot to a major kind of midpoint halt here. Now, they do seem to be going for the thing where in the next episode they're going to reintroduce the villains. Like Amari looks like he's going to be back in it. They're introducing a new character and so on. And we'll see exactly how it goes, but it feels like there's still actually quite a bit of this arc to go. So the main things that I suppose it still has to do, like I said, is definitely, I think, just have more character for the three rehabilitating ninja swordsmen, Bunten, Kyo, and Hebichigo. Kagura probably also needs a little bit of development with them, probably flashing back and explaining why they did what they did, and just giving more of a moment there. Kagura specifically, it feels like he has to more embrace, I suppose, the path that he actually has to take, because they really emphasize the idea that, like, what's this guy doing as a prison warden? He's almost like the next in line to be the Kage, it feels like, of the Mist. Why is he being a prison warden here? So it's obviously because of his connection to these characters and wanting to help him. But it also felt like, you know, they're playing up this idea of him not having his own ninja blade with him all that often. And then in the fight, he didn't really use the powers of it either. So they're definitely, I think, building to this idea of, you know, him showing his full strength, sort of accepting his path a little bit. I'm wondering how exactly they're going to do that. It'll probably take the resolution of this to be the case. And I'm guessing they'll just play off the idea that actually the three that are here actually really care about Kagura and like the fact that he cared enough for them, and they're gonna like repay that kind of trust that he had in them, and that will be a big moment that like inspires him to sort of become and take his path of like being kind of next in line to be a Kage. That is the positioning of this character ultimately, and I hope they do that quite well. Beyond that, it feels like it's mainly just the fights that we're eventually going to get to. We've got a lot of characters in play here, so there's going to be obviously a fight against the general Fanato people, but then there are a few sort of big boss characters on the enemy side. At the very least, there are three. So we have, what was it, Tenma from the last episode, we have Amari, and then the guy from earlier in the arc who also has like a sort of living sword, who is going to be, you know, cool to see. So it feels like, okay, the Tenma versus Kagura feels like, yeah, that's probably the way to do it. Boruto against someone, they probably will all have to team up against Amari based on the fact that it took sort of Chojuro and other characters to take him out in the first place. But we'll see where they go. Anything else I really want to say here about this one? Other than that, like, you know, they made use of most of the characters that we had here. Denki got a little bit of a moment. Metal's scene was actually quite good. That was a surprisingly good kind of character moment from him, just kind of highlighting that he's usually very awkward around people, but he actually was able to make Hebichigo open up. That was kind of interesting that they went with that. But, you know, it's the episode. Nothing too crazy, but they actually made the mystery, I think, pretty well done. Reasonable character stuff, given that we're still kind of right in the middle of the arc, and I hope we get there. I hope, like, the fact that they didn't go overboard with the characters here means we'll get it eventually. But you know, solid for what it was. This could have been a very frustrating episode, but there was stuff to it, and I do appreciate that. So yeah, we move on, and hopefully I hope they don't drag the arc on too much. The final thing I'll say is just I'm wondering, will they go in depth on the sort of Fanato ideology and create any sort of a big dynamic? Because there's definitely a few things from the very start of the arc that feels like it's been forgotten in the middle of all of this. So I assume they'll reconnect everything back together once we, I suppose, our characters get back to the sort of mainland type situation. So they're my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.